For me, coaching is simply about three things: awareness, education, and accountability. We need to make people aware of their possibilities, educate them on best practices, which comes from great books and other resources, and then we need to hold them accountable.
You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling. I'm the business psychologist, the author of the 4-Week Vacation and the How to Hire the Best series, as well as the founder of Tap the Potential, where we coach entrepreneurs like you to design sustainably profitable businesses that give you more time for what matters most and more money in your bank account than ever. Because after all, we believe work supports life, not the other way around. Weekly on the Profit by Design podcast, we bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. Get started on your journey with us by downloading the training so many entrepreneurs are talking about right now: how to make your time worth $10,000 an hour at tapthepotential.com/10K. I want to share with you that I'm very excited to bring our guest in. This is Simon Meadows of Sterling Business Coaching. Simon and I have had the opportunity to connect. He had me on his podcast a couple of months ago, and we had a great conversation. And one of the things that has really impressed me about Simon is his willingness to share and reflect on his own experience and to use that to serve those who he coaches. So what you need to know about Simon as we dive in is he's owned and run his own businesses, multiple businesses in sectors such as construction, retail, importing, online learning, aviation, and business coaching. I mean, talk about a breadth of experience. And Simon has always shared his experience, both good and bad, with others so they can benefit. And he loves doing this every day. And Simon, I so relate to that because I believe in, we've paid the tuition in the School of Hard Knocks. That tuition is already paid. So if we can save somebody else from the School of Hard Knocks, let's do that. So Simon loves to be honest and plain speaking, which comes from 30 plus years of working in and with the construction sector. And he's had the privilege of being a coach for over 12 years. And he also coaches other coaches from around the world. And Simon is located in the UK. So I think we have the opportunity today to have some discussion about just some international perspective of what's going on today in small business in different parts of the world too. So Simon, welcome.
Thank you very much. And what a great introduction. I'm very privileged to have you introduce me in that way. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really, whenever I bring someone on who has such passion and commitment for serving entrepreneurs and small business owners, I'm intensely curious about what is your why and what drives you to be out here doing this every single day. Because you could be doing anything. I mean, with your experience, there's anything that you can do, but you've chosen to do this. So what is that for you?
Well, it's interesting, Sabrina, because it took me a while to work that out. And it was only really just before I became a coach that I really got to grips with that. And I took my coaching qualifications back in the early 90s when I worked for a construction business before I had my own business. And I was given a team to manage and to supervise. I was 22, 23, and they were all in their 50s. And we had to take a zero start department in construction to 10 million in 2 years. That was our aim. So I learned how to manage people and how to get the most out of people through those coaching qualifications. And I think that's when I realized that ever since being a child, I'd always had to motivate myself, drive myself. I'm my own child. And yeah, it was a real passion for one, wanting to do better myself, but one, also for helping other people do better. And the best way I could help me was to help other people be great as well. So, and coaching just is an evolution of that, really.
So you've been coaching for years, informally, in different roles.
Yeah, but only getting paid for it for 12 years.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
It's about time you got paid for it with all that experience, don't you think? So, and the other thing that I didn't share in your introduction that I think is important for our listeners to know, both of us are Fix This Next certified advisors. And we're going to get into that in a little bit in the conversation. But in terms of, benefiting small business owners and how we serve, Fix This Next is a tremendous tool and resource that we now have at our disposal that I don't know about you, Simon, but one of the things I've always noticed in working with small business owners is there's always so much to fix and you can't figure out where to start, right?
Yeah, and the reason I'm a big fan of Fix This Next and Mike Michalowicz generally, all the other books that he's put out there, is it connects with the way that I talk and the way I think of just keeping it simple. Forget all the big words, forget all the jargon, just tell me what I need to know and the fastest route to get from A to B, as long as I know that B's the right place that I'm heading. And that's what that Fix This Next does. So it's great.
It absolutely does. It clears out the clutter and makes it super simple, and we know exactly where to head. So I want to unpack a little bit what you said about being 22 years old and managing people and supervising people who were in their 50s. And I know that that is an experience some of our listeners have right now, that you may be younger and you have older people on your team. And I'm really curious, like if you were going to share some of the misconceptions you had when you first started in that role and what you learned in terms of how to be more effective.
Interesting question. I think the first thing for me that I learned was not to get angry. And in construction, certainly here in the UK, it's a very confrontational, my background, we have a job title here in the UK called a quantity surveyor. So I dealt with all the money, all the costs of projects, all the claims. If it was a contractual claim, if it was a claim for additional works, then I dealt with it. So every day was a battle. And I realized when I was managing the teams, that was not a good place to be. So I couldn't go into battle mode. So I had to learn not to get angry and not to go into battle mode. So I like to think that I've got the best out of all my teams, even the teams I've had in my own businesses, by treating with respect, valuing them, working to my own values, assuring their own, their values as well, and just finding that better way of connecting with people. And I've always found that I've got the most out of people by doing it that way. The other thing that, because of my training and because of my degree, I'm all about the systems and the processes. So if I've got a framework, that's why I love Fix This Next. That's why I love Clockwork and all the other things that are out there, even other people's programs like ClickFunnels, etc. I love them because I love a framework. I love a recipe because I'll follow it. Give it me and I'll just do it exactly as. If it doesn't work, then I'll call it black and blue, but I will follow it to the letter to make sure I get the results from it. And 99 times out of 10, out of 100, I do, you get those results. So having that lack of anger, that empathy, and then following the systems and the processes for me was really, really important.
So I think that's really interesting that you say that. This is top of mind for me. I'm teaching a coach approach course right now for our business owners and their leaders in their businesses at Tap the Potential. And we were just having this conversation yesterday about the difference in how people respond to us when we ourselves are not on the hook and not charged up emotionally about something. And so we were working on a process of just getting aware of when we're on the hook and then taking 5 deep breaths. And I did this exercise and I said, okay, just imagine yourself, and our listeners, if you're not driving, you can do this exercise too. Just imagine for yourself, close your eyes and imagine a time in the last few days when you were really upset about something. You were on the hook emotionally with it, and just let yourself go there and be in that space and feel the feelings and notice where in your body you feel it. So where do you like tension in your shoulders, in your stomach, your back, maybe your brow furrows, your face, contorts in a funny way, and just let yourself be there. And now take 5 deep breaths. So breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, Breathe out. And now notice how you feel in your body, the relaxation. Okay. And so what happens mentally when we do that is all of the chemicals in our brain that happen when we go into fight or flight are now calmed down, and we are in a place where we can access our higher level thinking. And if we do that in the presence of someone else who is charged up, they don't have to know what we're doing. They just experience the calm that happens when we're physically present with them and we're doing that. So that's a way to take the whole situation down. And I'm sharing this here because what you said about the construction industry is so true. It's a very confrontational, rough and tumble industry, in your face. And when I'm coaching a business owner, and usually when I'm coaching them, they want to talk about how to hire and get people on their team. And they're wondering, how do I get these A players? This is such a competitive industry. And one of the things that we hear over and over from the A players on their team, why they stay with them and why they like working for our particular business owners in the Tap the Potential family, is they are respected. No one yells at them. They know that they are in a safe, supported environment. And all it takes to create a safe, supported environment is to manage our emotions and to treat others with respect and be curious about them. That's it. So it is simple. You talked about simple systems, things that are really basic. That is so basic.
And I think so many times in many businesses, particularly fast track businesses or high pressure businesses, people feel that they've got to make those knee-jerk decisions. I've got to be making quick decisions. And sure, I think most of us have in the past, and I'm a very quick decision maker. But I read a book, I think it was Mel Robbins, talks about the 5-second rule, but she talks about making decisions within 5 seconds. Actually, I believe they should be made bang on 5 seconds. So exactly as you said there, Sabrina, if you can take those 5 breaths just to calm things down, you make a better decision. Because I don't want to make quick decisions. I want to make good decisions.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
Yes. And I also think that when we are in fight or flight mode and we're making decisions, often we're going to pay the dumb tax on those decisions down the road. They cause more problems for us and those on our team and our family members. And one of the things that one of the areas where I've been learning and growing is looking at, am I the only one who has to make this decision? Is this something that I could take to my team or a trusted colleague, someone else that I could have a conversation with, run it by them before I act on this? And that is really, for business owners, I think that's a pattern of retraining our brains, because we are just used to being the one who makes all the decisions. And we tell ourselves we're responsible. And I think we miss opportunities for collaborative input.
And I think particularly as well, I used to work with quite a lot of family businesses, and where you've got, husband, wife, partners working together. And I don't do partnerships very well, listeners, so I apologize for that, first of all. I've never done partnerships particularly well. I've been married a long while, which is why I don't work with my wife, Angela. But the thing is, I think when you've got two people who have that emotional connection and they fire each other up so quickly, what you've got to do is learn to calm each other down really quickly as well, because emotions get very much in the way of very connected relationships of family, partners, etc. That's always really important to make those better decisions, because that's when they get really fiery.
Yeah. Well, I learned something along those lines about 10 years ago, and that is that only one person gets to be crazy at a time. If one person can stay calm in the interaction, then things will have a much better outcome. But if both of us go off the rails at the same time, then that's where we have a lot of dumb tax that we're going to be paying down the road from that. I'm curious, since we're both coaches, as a coach and you're working with your clients around their presence and how they deal with people, what are some of the ways that you see having a coach can really make the difference for a business owner?
I think there's a few aspects of that. For me, having had a coach, and I've still got 2 coaches now, it's about knowing that if I get to 5 and I still don't have it, knowing that there's somebody at the end of the line. There's somebody on a text message, or there's somebody I can just call. And I think that's really important, because being in business is very, very lonely. And I think as coaches, we have a responsibility to deal and take away with some of that loneliness that's out there. So having that availability to not always be on tap, because we don't want to set a standard of that, but we just need to know that we can be there when our clients really need us. So I think that's really important. And as a business owner, that was really, really vital for me. I think the other thing is it's that self-awareness. Most people, and that breath exercise you took us all through, really starts to get you the feeling of being self-aware. And that's what many of us lack. And for me, coaching is simply about three things: awareness, education, and accountability. We need to make people aware of their possibilities, educate them on best practices, which comes from great books and other resources. And then we need to hold them accountable. So, very much, I'm sleeves rolled up type coaching. It's not just about saying you're going to do it. It's not just about making the right noises. It's then following it through with that accountability as well, and making sure people are doing it. But it's certainly about that self-awareness. That's the big one for me. That's where it starts. It has to start with self-awareness. And I know that's a bit soft and a bit woolly. And for me, in all my times of construction, I used to hate things that were very woolly, but it is. We've got to be self-aware.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you. I have my own coach too. And it is that we all have our blind spots. No matter how self-aware we are, we still have blind spots. And in addition to having my own coach, I really benefit from having a network of other trusted entrepreneurs around me at different stages of business. And I love, that I can reach out and say, I'm struggling with this, and this is a challenge. What experience do you have around this? Just tell me, have you ever encountered this? And if so, how did you handle it? And I find that I almost think about it like experience picking. Like, I want to go pick your brain, but I don't want you to tell me what to do. I want to know if you've been through it before and how did you deal with it? And that, in terms of opening up possibilities, I find is incredibly helpful. And
it's like a pick and mix, isn't it? When somebody gives you their experience, you get to pick and choose from that what you want to take away, don't you? It's your choice. It's not theirs to impose upon you. It's yours to choose what you take. I think that's very important.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you have a coach who can help you integrate that. And so one of the challenges, I think, when we experience pick, if we stay within our own industry, we get a lot of the same information reflected back to us. So you and I are kind of unusual coaches, Simon, in that we coach cross industry and we coach, a variety of businesses. And that, I feel, brings a breadth of experience to another business owner in their industry, because if they're going to industry trainings and they're working with an industry coach, they're hearing the same kind of stuff over and over. But we can bring in things that are different, that work in other industries, that can be applied in their industry.
And that's interesting, because certainly the mentality here in the UK with construction is very much that we're unique. It only happens in our industry. There's no other industry like it. And, as you read through the introduction there, at one time I had 5 businesses on the go, from the construction business to a retail garden centre. I was the UK's first importer of Canadian hot tubs, and I got an aviation company. And I can tell every single listener, if you're in construction or any other business, if you think you're unique, the problems are not unique. They're across every single industry and sector. And there are people out there who run their own businesses who are nothing at all to do with your sector and how you do things, but their experiences will certainly help you. And that's the same with us as coaches. You don't have to be a construction coach to help a construction company. There are other things that you can bring to the table as well. And we're not as unique as we think we are. Sorry to burst that bubble for anybody who's in construction. We're not.
No, any industry, I hear that from our clients. And there's been times where I've felt like, boy, this challenge that I have is unique to me because I'm a coach, and, somebody who's in retail won't be able to relate. But these challenges that we have, they are unique to being an entrepreneur and having a growing business. So I want to talk a little bit about COVID, and I want to think through, but with both of us being coaches and having experienced COVID in our own businesses and working with multiple business owners over the last 15, 16 months. Simon, if you could go back and talk to yourself in January 2020, before COVID, what advice would you give yourself for navigating it with your business?
Well, as you were mentioning it then, one thing came to mind straight away. I actually had booked, because I've recently had a hip replacement a couple of years ago, and I've been struggling with the hip replacement. And I booked my first skiing trip for March 23rd.
Oh.
And that was the day that the UK locked down. So the first thing, if I look back in January, if there was anything I'd do differently, I'd have booked my ski trip for February, because at least I'd have managed to get away.
There you go.
So that's the first thing. I think looking back, what would I say to myself? Don't panic. I've had the busiest 12 months of my entire 12 years. I picked up more new clients, more referrals. I've helped more people in that first 12 months of COVID than I've had before. So certainly I would tell myself not to panic. And the reason I say that is because I did panic. I started to look at, how can I sort of hunker down a little bit? How can I offer discounts to people to keep them and help people? And it's taken me quite a while to get all my clients back to paying full price. So I definitely would say, don't panic, don't give things away, and consider, and I know Mike talks about this in a few of his books, look at taking on debt. And I've realized this with a lot of clients as well. Certainly we were very, very lucky here that the government gave us a huge amount of help, and very, very quickly. And there were lots of grants, lots of loans available, and lots of people have taken those. And now they're having to face the consequences of actually making the repayments. And I think, in one of the books, it talks about only use debt if it brings you extra profit. If you gain from taking debt on, then that's fine. If you can use your money in a better way and use somebody else's money in a better way, then that's fine. But I think for me, it was myself, don't panic. Certainly for the people I was working with, it was really making better decisions about debt, and really, really also embracing the online a little bit more and a little bit earlier. I was probably a couple of months sort of lagging in that. So I definitely, I got clients that were on Zoom, but I should have got people onto Zoom and get them online a little bit earlier. Definitely.
So you were doing a lot of in-person coaching?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a huge shift for you.
And particularly because of construction, I hadn't got one single construction client that would go onto a Zoom session. They were all face-to-face.
I hear you.
Yeah. Now they're all online. There's some I go to face-to-face because they're larger clients, because it's part of their package. But yeah, even they use online every now and then.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients in construction and the landscape industry. And so getting them on a Zoom call or taking a class, like our leadership boot camp classes are offered over Zoom, was really a challenge. But all of a sudden in September, when we offered these classes, it was no problem. Like everyone was familiar with Zoom. But I can imagine for you that pivot going from on person or in person. I made that pivot probably about 5 or 6 years ago after I moved across the country. So I had a lot of clients in a local area that I had to get used to doing online meetings. And then we just went to all online, but it takes a while. And I want to echo too what you said about discounting. If I could go back and talk to myself, we didn't discount. We just kept our fees at our 2019 fees instead of going forward with our 2020 fee increase. And so now we're renewing people and we're having to juggle that, they were renewed at 2019 prices and now we're at 2021. There's 2 years worth there. And so we're juggling that. The other thing that I would have said to myself is, because we had peaks and valleys of revenue. So we had some of our months that were our highest revenue months ever in the middle of COVID. And so I would look at that and I would say, wow, look, we're going, we're kicking butt. And then the next month it would be like revenues of 2017. And so it was, for us, there was no predictability. There was no, I usually look at my profit and loss from the previous years and I compare and I can see the trends. There was no guide of how this was going to go. And so my advice, if I were going to go back and talk to myself in January 2020, is to say, okay, what decisions, if your revenue in your business goes back to 2017, 2018 level, what decisions do you need to make, and just have that plan in place? Because I was in the middle of that happening in different months without a plan. So having that plan, I think, is really key.
And I think for me, and I'll share this with the listeners, it was for many of my clients, I'm very lucky because I managed to sell my businesses back in 2009 when the banking crisis happened and walk away fairly comfortably. And I do what I do because of the passion, not because I have to, certainly not. But for the clients that I had, I've always encouraged them to build a cash reserve, get that 3 months absolute minimum, 6 months potentially, runway that they can go if disruption happens, because disruption does come along. Okay, this is pretty different in COVID, but it's happened before. Other things like this come along. So I encouraged all my clients 3 to 6 months, and they've all done exceptionally well, with one that didn't do quite so well. And there's a different reason behind that because it was more personal reasons. But all the other businesses that wanted to stay in business have done well because of those cash reserves.
Yeah.
And they've come out on top, ahead of the game, and they've had a better year. I think it's got to be 7 out of 10 of my clients have actually had a better year in the COVID year than they had the prior 2 years.
Yes. I've seen the same thing. I've experienced it in our business too. I cannot speak enough about the importance of having cash reserves. This is the Profit by Design podcast, so I just have to give a big shout out. If you're not using Profit First yet in your business, my goodness, what are you waiting for? There's so many business owners now who do it. It's been around for 5 or 6 years. I mean, it is in every industry. When I encounter different people in those industries, they know about Profit First. And I love that, Simon, because I think that's a huge shift for small business owners and how we think about our business and really understand the need for those cash reserves.
And it's such a shame here in the UK. I don't think the Profit First book has really had the coverage that it needs. And when you talk about Profit First, people really sort of kick their heads to one side and think, what are you talking about? But I completely agree. I had a guy on my podcast, Chris Murphy, in the early days, and he had a chiropractic business, and he'd read Profit First. And he gave a great testimony. In fact, I sent it to Mike to use in the team. He said, it saved my life. He said, I was at the brink of losing my business and taking my own life. He said, and Profit First said, within just months, my business had turned around, and he built the business, he sold the business, and now, like us, he's a coach and he consults and he gives other people great advice. But such an amazing story of how it turned around. So yeah, definitely, it's something to base every part of the finances of the business on, definitely.
Yes. And I also want to say to any of you listeners, if you have massive debt that has built up during COVID and it's causing you to lose sleep at night and you're stressed about it, Profit First is the ticket out. We have had clients pay off $70,000 in a year, $100,000, multiple 6 figures of debt in a very short period of time by implementing the Profit First system. So there is hope. And I hope that someone hears that and gets that book and gets to work on Profit First. And
there's no reason now, with banking and online banking, and we have banks over here now. Sterling Bank do spaces where you can put money. You don't need lots of different separate bank accounts now. A lot of these online banking accounts have spaces where you can put the money. And that was always an obstacle for me when I started implementing Profit First. I couldn't get enough bank accounts to do it. And you just weren't allowed to open that many bank accounts, certainly here in the UK. But now it's not a problem. I can do as much of that as out now. So there's no reason not to do it.
Yes. And I also want to speak to the other side of Profit First in terms of, we have clients who have been using it for 6 years now. We were the very first Profit First firm at Tap the Potential. So I have had the joy of really watching clients grow with it. And I have a client who is I think he might be the only business in town that doesn't run a line of credit. He is his own banker, essentially. He's paid off hundreds of thousands of debt. He's much more profitable than his industry peers. And his accountant comes to him at least twice in the last few years and says, what are you doing? Because you're the only one in town who has a business that's healthy. And so building that kind of stability in your business, not only do you have cash reserves built up for 3-6 months a year, that's all wonderful. it also makes you eligible for credit if you need it. So you have access to more loans and more funding should you need it down the road. And then to use that, obviously, if you are that good with your money through Profit First, you're going to be just fine managing money that you take out to grow and leverage in your business. But it just creates tremendous opportunity. So no matter where you are in your business at this point with the revenue and the cash flow, Profit First can have a huge impact and get you going in a stronger direction. Or if you're already strong, there's no excuse to say, my business is strong, I don't need Profit First, because, oh my gosh, you could be so much stronger with it in place. Right, Simon?
Definitely. And I think it's the way that you turn the whole process of how you look at expenses and profit that for many is such a shift and such a revelation. But some resist it. And I've had a couple of clients that say no, and usually it's their accountant that drives it because they're very traditional in how they want bookkeeping to be done and the way they look at it. But this isn't about your tax accounts. This isn't about the paperwork you submit to the Inland Revenue or anybody else. This is about how you run your business. And you're absolutely right, Sabrina. It's stability, isn't it? It's stability for growth. And if you want to scale up your business, then you've got to have that stability. And if it's on debt and it's on poorly managed finances, then it's on a dodgy foundation, definitely.
Yeah. I want to circle back to Fix This Next and tie it, because oftentimes when we have one problem in our business, so let's say that this week the problem is how to cover payroll, and we're losing sleep at night wondering how we're going to cover payroll. And we go to work on that problem and we think, okay, we just need to increase our revenue and that'll take care of it. And so then we decide, okay, to fix this problem with payroll, now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to increase revenue. And now we're focused on sales. And then we realize, wow, we're not really good at marketing. So now we're going to go over here. We need to work on the marketing. And we're all over the place. And then 2 weeks later, oh my gosh, I'm still laying awake at night worrying about payroll and nothing gets fixed. It's all like this continuous cycle. So in your experience, Simon, what does Fix This Next take? How does that make this process better for us business owners?
I think the most powerful part for me of Fix This Next is the business hierarchy of needs and going up and down that. I was very pleased to be asked by a local university to do some webinars last year, and I chose to do the webinars on the business hierarchy needs, starting at the sales level of profit. Because what I found is, like you just said there, people are even stretching themselves. I've got fairly new businesses that I was talking to who hadn't got the sales levels where they need to be. They hadn't got the profit levels where they need to be, but they were looking at impact and legacy. And as soon as you look at that assessment that that's in the book and you see how scattered you are, you think, how on earth can I be successful when I've got so many things in so many different levels going off at the same time? So the business hierarchy of needs, and realizing that not only have you got the one thing to fix next, but you've got to make sure that you're in the right level. And have you reviewed and gone back to the sales? Have you got everything right? And I just want to share one very quick story. When I was in construction and I had my own coach, it was one of the franchise coaches. They had a very linear way of delivering their coaching program. And I'd had some really great results at the beginning. And I thought, this is amazing. But then things started going wrong and cash flow was becoming an issue. Their answer wasn't to go back and look and fix the cash flow problem. It was to pay more to the coach and push on harder. And for me, that's why I mentioned the business hierarchy needs, because sometimes it's not just going one way. Sometimes when things aren't working, they're not going right, then go back to that base level. Check it all off again. Have I got every element in my sales right? Have I got everything in my profit right? Is everything in my operations correct? And he then became my biggest cash flow problem. So you've got to make sure that you're not afraid of looking at those basic levels and saying, okay, I think my foundation's got a little bit rocky. I need to go back and check my foundation and make sure it's where it needs to be. And the business hierarchy needs allows you to do that, very, very effectively.
You couldn't have said it better. That is one of the biggest frustrations that I have with a lot of canned coaching programs. They're very linear. Everyone does the same thing. And so what I love is we at Tap the Potential, when we're working with our business owners, we're creating customized action plans for them. And the Fix This Next is like this really fast x-ray. We can see, let's cut through the clutter. And the other thing is, as a coach, when I'm hearing what the business owner is telling me, sometimes I'm hearing one perspective. I'm not getting the full picture. And so I wonder about that. And I feel like the Fix This Next assessment makes it much more subjective. And it's just real easy to get at what is the core. And there is no shame in going back and doing foundational work in a business, no matter how far you've gotten with it.
And it's interesting, when I've done the Fix This Next assessment, and I've done, dozens of these with clients, it's interesting that the one question that everybody cannot answer is lifestyle congruency. I've not had one single client, and these are clients that are looking at selling their business, they're looking at exiting their business, yet they still don't know what the lifestyle congruency is. What does their sales revenue need to look like to give them, that comfortable lifestyle that they want?
Yeah.
And they realize then that they're not actually that comfortable. They have no idea of what comfortable looks like. So how can they have a business that they want to exit? It's such a polarizing effect.
Yes. And so on the Profit by Design podcast, we talk about designing a sustainably profitable business. And that means we take you through the process of identifying what are your lifestyle needs and what does the business need to generate to cover those lifestyle needs. And a lot of business owners think about, profit and think about, well, I just need to cover my mortgage and my groceries and a little bit to travel and some clothes and keep the kids in school. But there's so much more than that, because when you work for a corporation, you have other insurance benefits, you have retirement that's building up, you have all these other benefits. And so that needs to be thought through when you're thinking about what are the lifestyle needs that this business needs to support to be, that's the sustainable piece.
I was really lucky when I started in business. I was only 23. The accountant that I had a consultant that worked for him, not a coach, but a consultant. And he got me to create a plan. And my plan was to retire at 50. So I created a plan when I was 23 to semi-retire and become a coach when I was 50. And you've got to have that plan, Spring, as you say there. You've got to know what your lifestyle needs to look like. And, I was lucky. I managed to beat it by 8 years. I did what I wanted to do at the age of 42. But so many construction businesses, and this is why I did it, so many friends around me, and I've got friends that have passed away and haven't been able to hand their business on. It always seems to, particularly in construction, be a game of chance. They hope that somebody in the business who's a senior manager may one day want to take the business over without knowing how much it's going to be, whether they can afford it, whether they're the right person to drive it forward. There just seems to be this Russian roulette of, will my business carry on and allow me to exit it? And very, very many people, particularly here in the UK, die in their business. And it's so sad.
It is. And it doesn't need to be that way for business owners. And when I talk about Entrepreneurs Take Your Life Back and our Facebook community and what we're all about at Tap the Potential, it really is about designing a business that gives you life and that creates opportunity for you. And, with my book, The 4-Week Vacation, that's coming out in October, a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, a 4-week vacation would be really nice. It is so much more than the 4-week vacation, because the 4-week vacation means you have a business that can run and grow without you. It means that you can be totally away, totally disconnected, and that business is independent of you. And that is a business that you can sell. Someone will want to buy that business because it can pay the owner, it's profitable, and the owner doesn't have to be in the middle of the day-to-day operation. So that means it can afford to pay a general manager or a CEO, and then the owner can step out and doesn't even have to be in the CEO role. So that is a way of getting out of the business and really having that business that gives you your life.
It's the bulletproof test. I've always had that in all my businesses. If you can be away from a business for 4 weeks, and it's not just about having no vacation then suddenly going on 4 weeks. And I know your book will talk about that. So you definitely need to read the book, listeners. It is about getting to that point, because it is that litmus test of, can the business run like clockwork? Can it run without me? definitely.
Absolutely. So, Simon, I imagine we have some listeners who would like to continue to follow you. You have a podcast, so I want you to have the opportunity to talk about your podcast here. And then I know you also have a gift that you want to share with our listeners.
Yeah, thanks. The podcast is my mission, really, to give business owners tips and lessons that they can take away, that they can do something with straight away. And if you go on any of the podcast channels and just search for Sterling Coaching, you'll find the podcast. It's a business success and coffee. We talk about coffee, whiskey, and also porn star martinis the other day. Who knew? So we have some good fun as well. And yes, I've got to fix this next book excerpt that's available on my website, and I know you're going to put the link to that below the show notes. And for me, I love listening to books, so I listen to a lot of the audio books. The book excerpt is a good book summary that people can get with some of the key things from Fix This Next. That's authorized and provided by Mike Michalowicz and the team as well. So it's a great thing to download. Thank you.
That's a great resource. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners. Thanks for being with me, Simon. And for those of you who have listened and found value in this, I would love to invite you into our Entrepreneurs Take Your Life Back Facebook community and comment on what has resonated with you from our discussion today. What hit home? What are you taking away from the experiences you've heard Simon and I sharing? That's going to make an impact in your business. So thank you for being with us. Thank you, Simon.
Being a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Entrepreneurs Take Your Life Back Facebook community at tapthepotential.com/group. Share your aha moments from today's episode, ask me questions, and join in on the fun with your fellow entrepreneurs on the journey to designing sustainably profitable businesses that give you more time for what matters most and more money in your bank account than ever. And finally, share today's episode with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this. If you're loving the Profit by Design podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your business or your life, would you mind doing two things? Subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode, and please leave us a review. Our listener reviews help us get into the top 10 of all entrepreneurship podcasts so that more entrepreneurs like you discover us. Your review is critical in helping us make a difference for more entrepreneurs who are ready to take their life back.